Hi, folks. Welcome to the Cricket Fan Zone podcast. And what a return to Test cricket it has been for the cricketing world with this fantastic match between West Indies and England. And joining me, as always, is Aditya from Chennai. Hello, Aditya. How are you?
Hi. Good. I'm so excited for the second test. I can't wait for the second test. In fact, as you said, what a way for cricket to come back,
Absolutely.
and it's such a good contest. And I'm happy to see West Indies, coming out victorious. No offense to the English team, but I think in many facets they were outplayed, and I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah. Again, West Indies is one of those sites like New Zealand. When it wins, everybody likes it. So it's
Yeah.
the second most favorite team for all of us. I
Mhm.
mean, what a match and what a way. I mean, I lost the bet already. I was calling for 2-0, right? So so
Yeah, yeah,
thanks
yeah.
thanks to Jason Holder and Co and his brothers.
And,
Um,
and there was another bet we had. You said 280 England will score if they bat first. I said 210 somewhere. So
yeah, yeah. I think I
it's kind
trust
of
people
like
a lot.
fun.
I trust people a lot. I should become more cynical like you. But yeah, I mean, amazing test match. What a context, and it went for 5 days, and really right, and it went till the end of the wire. It had everything,
Mm.
and it had
Mm.
the context, and it had the contest, and
Yeah.
both the teams. You can see that both of them are struggling a bit because nobody played cricket for such a long time. The rustiness was still there, but West Indies came out blasting in the second innings, especially. Such a
Yeah.
difficult position from 27 for 3 to win that match was amazing. And they showed more resilience than all of us thought, right? And the
Actually,
guy,
they have a very good track record.
yeah,
There are 65 instances where they were made to face, the 200 or lesser than 200 target. On 55 instances, they have won. On the remaining, the match ended up, without a result. It's a
mm,
draw. So they haven't lost a game when they chase 200 or less than 200. Something Indian team could learn from them. How do they do that? Yeah.
something about targets and West Indies, probably when you have a very clear target, they are a lot more focused. And
Hmm.
that's one complaint most people talk about West Indies, at least the new sides, right? That kind of lack of focus, despite having amazing talent. So probably when you give them a target in the last innings, they really focus on it. And I mean, they held that record, right? They once chased that 400 plus versus Australia in one of those matches
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
long time. So yeah, a lot of grit. And the guy who we thought will do nothing he came on second innings, and then he did one of those that once in a while Blackwood innings, the Haley's Comet innings, and
Yeah,
he just finished the game for
absolutely.
them.
I think it was a very uncharacteristic innings from him. It was not the flamboyant, or you can call it the natural Blackwood innings. It was not that. I mean, actually, what England did was the moment he came in, they started to spread out the field. They said, we are giving you an opportunity. Go ahead and show what you are made of. Every time you do this, right? Just play your natural game.
Hmm.
He suddenly had a plan B.
Hmm.
He started to show his improved version of Blackwood, and they were surprised. I mean, like, what is this guy? He doesn't do this. So I think the clever plan which Stokes and English team had, this guy countered it very well,
Hmm.
and that was a success, I would say. Rather than I said he will play one good innings out of the six if he gets all six, but not this kind of an innings. I didn't expect him to play like this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that was really good to watch.
Yeah, interesting case on Blackwood because even Jason Holder on the post-match media briefing, right? He spoke about Blackwood, about being he's the kind of the guy every team needs, and he's a team guy, and he
Mm.
just needs someone to back him and support him, and he'll come good. And Holder had a lot of good words for Blackwood, even though I'm sure even he wasn't expecting Blackwood to go and score 95 there. And at 27 for 3, I think probably England also missed the plot there. I think when they took out Brooks and Shyhope, probably they thought we broke the spine of the batting and then we can run through the lower order. Probably they were focusing on Roston Chase and really forgot that this guy can actually do the score
Yeah.
the runs. I think he just went under the radar and then won the game for them. So we had spoken about few things on the preview, right? About Stokes versus Holder, and that lived up to the expectations. It's taking each other out, and Stokes had a pretty decent game. Even though in the first innings he could have capitalized more, and he bowled well, and then he also batted decently in the second innings. Holder again,
but as a captain, I would say, I mean, as much as we can speak about Stokes being brave enough to go and bat first on an overcast, condition in Ajay's bowl, but he has to look at his own team. He can be a superior batsman, right? But they are playing without Joe Root. He has been their best batsman for at least 4 or 5 years now. So they are without him, and they are not sure of their opening pair. Joe Denley, as we always know, is Achilles heel for them, and Crawley hasn't done enough. Probably, we said Ole Pope is good, but he hasn't played enough games to establish himself as the best player there. So Stokes was the only person whom we could say as a reliable batsman in the team. And then the Josh Butler, scenario, which we will speak about later. But I don't know what Stokes thought. I thought the conditions were ideal for them to bowl. And he has selected 2 pure out-and-out fast bowlers. He could have made use of those conditions. I mean, it's a brave call if they can, if they could have gone ahead and then negotiated the first hour or so, and they did not lose a bunch of wickets. Yes, it's a great decision. But when has England done that? I have to go way back to 2012 or 2013 to see an English side that were equipped to do that. They were not even equipped. It's not about applying and playing the way out. They did not have the talent to do that. So if I look at it from that aspect, I don't think it's a very clever decision from Stokes to put them in this country.
But it's kind of difficult to judge him based on one game, on what he based his decisions on. And probably I think the logic would have been to not bat last. And then he was trusting both these fast bowlers and then Dom Best, wrap up West Indies. Probably that's what like conventional logic would have told. But again, what you told about the English batting, that actually doesn't make really sense to go start batting in the first place, because you haven't played for a while, right? You haven't played for a long time. So, that was a bit of a gamble, and Stokes is a gambler. I was not really surprised about that. I think overall his captaincy was pretty good, and his field setups were pretty aggressive. He was reacting to the game situations, and he was not really having a set plan and just going on the field and running through the motions. He was the guy who was very active on the field as captain. But anyway, Root is going to come back as captain for the next match, so not much to say on that. And coming to the Holder, right? The Holder was fantastic. His bowling has been really amazing, and
we said that he's going to do miracle with the ball.
And he was amazing because he 6 for 42 in the first innings as captain, and Shannon Gabriel took the rest of the wickets, leading by example, right, from the first. So you can see from the first innings that he was the guy who was the leader, and that set up the match for them in a way also on Holder. Even though his batting has not been as good as he would like, I think he's a bit out of form with his batting. Bowling has been terrific, and he was pretty effective, and that he was there to finish the match also with that 14 not out. And but again, Stokes versus Holder, I would say honors even slightly edged to Holder because Holder won the match. Otherwise, both of them did pretty well. And one of the other people we spoke about was Joe Delhi. Again, Joe Delhi really is, as George Dobell was saying, that he's pretty lucky to still be there. He's one of Ed Smith's men, as he says. I mean, we don't want to be too harsh on the player, but again,
but actually we got it wrong. We got it wrong. We thought he was 31, 32. He's actually 34, in fact. And I mean, he's 34. He has played 15 games. He hasn't scored a century yet. If you are batting as a number 3, we all know number 3 is like the spine of any team when they play Test cricket.
That's where the bulk of runs should come from.
Exactly. Any player, any legendary player, we would have seen they would have been a number 3 or a number 4 to have scored so much amount of runs at a healthy average. So if you are going to trust a 34-year-old person then I would say he should be like, someone like Mike Hussey, who has proved everything.
Hmm.
And you are selecting him because he's a finished product. You cannot give him 15, 20 games and then say, hey, maybe he didn't live up to the expectation, or we gave a gamble. That doesn't work out, right? So I think with Joe Denley, probably has played his last test match. That is the way it looks like. When they speak about Root coming back, and then Crawley has done no harm to himself. He has scored a 70-odd runs, and he's a 22-year-old kid.
Right.
So who would you trust logically, right?
Michael Vaughan has also said the same thing, right? He was talking about Denley's time is pretty much over. And I mean, really, Denley has a two-way problem. One is that first thing is he doesn't have someone like an Alistair Cook who used to, bat at the top, and then the middle order used to bat a bit later, generally when Cook was playing. It didn't really come to the number 3, but now he doesn't have the cushion of having Cook. Most often, their openers get out pretty quickly, and then the one down has to pretty much go on bat from the first 10-20 overs, and he has not really done too much in the 15.
I think we spoke about Joe Denley being someone who would take his time. But again, his problem is he takes a lot of time. He scores those 20, 25 or 30 odd runs. And by the time, you think this guy is set in the crease, he could score a little bit more, and he has a platform. He gets out. So who gets benefited? You just cannot say, hey, I have come out and the new ball is no longer new. My job is done. That's not the job of a number 3. You just cannot say that and, be a long stay in the team. It's not reality.
I think his problem is he's neither the aggressor or the anchor, right? He can't do both those innings. He's not like one of your VVS Lakshman kind who can just scream the boundaries in the first 20 balls. Or he's not like a Rahul Dravid who will just, take enough time and then he'll start scoring. So
probably if we can take a classic example from English cricket, you could say Trott, right? So Trott used to take a lot of time to settle down, but once he's set, he's such a hard batsman to, he puts a huge amount of price on his wicket. So if you're gonna take time, then you should be that kind of a player. And there was so much amount of analysis on Denley where they say the moment the ball nips back, he has a problem. He has played tons and tons of domestic cricket in English conditions. And if you have a problem with the ball coming back in, then how did he even get selected to, England team?
Like Ajinkya Rahane, man. we have the guy who can, when the ball nips inside. Okay, let's not go there. Okay, so so anyway, Joe Denley, I think most probably will not play the next match because Dom Sibley has scored runs and Zach Crawley has scored runs. And Ollie Pope bats in the lower order, so Denley can't be replaced there. Joe Root, I think, will take his place in the next match. And Dom Sibley came good in this match. He scored a 50, kind of established his place.
He probably had a horrible start to the to the test series. We could say, you just leave a ball which you think is going away from the off stump and it nips back and you look like
he just brought back all the joy. He did it for the love of test cricket. He was like, okay, I haven't seen anything. Okay, take my off stumps, and then he took it. So
it really looked that way when he did that. But I think he did justice for his selection by playing a crucial knock of getting a 50 in the second innings. But again, they say he has a problem of getting out down the leg side. He walks too far across the stump, probably not exactly like Steven Smith, but he's there on the off stump. But the moment the ball goes towards his hip, he just doesn't know what to do, and he ends up trying to play a shot, and he gets caught behind down the leg side. And he has done it time and again, it seems. So for an opener, when you are set and you get out that way, that's the most horrible thing you would ever want to feel. He was well set. I thought, now he's going to go and make a big 100. Probably that would have changed the fate of this game.
Match. Yeah.
So, but I don't think either Rory Burns or Dom Sibley could be blamed for what has happened to England team in this game. I think they did decent. They did do a decent job. I mean, when you play in English conditions, right? At this moment of time, looking at the technique of the batsman and the temperament of the batsman, I haven't seen any test opener going to English conditions and then scoring a big 100.
Hmm.
It's not happening. So 40, 50, 60 runs by an individual is like is so precious for them. So I think they did a good job. But even Rory Burns, right? I think he played decent. He played decent couple of innings, but probably not an innings like Alistair Cook. That didn't happen.
You can't expect that. Like Cook is a once in a generation player. And I mean, which is what West Indies also did in a way, right? Like both the openers, they give you a decent start. At least see off the new ball in a certain way. And then even not having too many runs is not a problem because England has kind of become a graveyard for openers, and then they're playing cricket after such a long time. The openers are facing the first brunt, right? So you can't really blame them. And you can't really judge them also. Even Dom, Sibley, whether it's technique or certain weaknesses, we have to assess it after the series, I think, because all of them are young cricketers, just inside. And one major player who's hiding behind all this is Josh Butler, who I don't understand. I mean, India is a very kind nation. We give hundreds to a lot of players. Whenever they're out of form, this has been happening for the last 20 years. 30 years, whenever you're out of form, play with India, you can score 100, you become a great player. So I think Butler is hiding behind his white ball credentials. It's kind of frustrating, right? Because he scores these 30s and 40s and all that, but this is a player who they were comparing with the likes of Gilchrist. They wanted him to become their Gilchrist. So and it's not really happening there, and people are not really discussing him.
I'll say this again. Put Adam Gilchrist in this side. Ask Adam Gilchrist, will he feel comfortable to play his natural game if he sees a couple of openers who are not as good as Hayden and Langer, and there is Joe Denley at number 3, and then there is Zach Crawley, who hasn't done anything till now. He's a youngster coming in at number 4. Except Stokes, I don't think anyone at any capacity would be even considered to be part of that Australian unit. So how would Adam Gilchrist feel comfortable to come in and play the role of aggressor?
I think he'll still play.
Yeah, he would be out every time on the field with Australia down
65 for 5 or
I mean, he can play 1 or 2 odd good innings, but I'm not saying Josh Butler is equal to Gilchrist, but the role Gilchrist played was very different because they had such phenomenal players.
But no, I've seen both. I've seen both with Gilchrist. I mean, we are digressing from Butler, but still I've seen both with Gilchrist, where he has come at 300 for 5 and then makes it 500. Or he has come at 60 for 5 and then typically that Mumbai test match, I remember, right? And then he came and he changed the whole thing. And then against Pakistan also he did that. I mean, again, that's a once in a generation player, and Butler is hailed as one. Butler is like so highly rated even before I would say he has done enough in test matches. They say this word called the blue-eyed boy, right? But Josh Butler is the blue-eyed boy of English cricket. So to be honest, we've been seeing this for quite a while, that he gets out in those fancy 30s and 40s. He scores a lot of beautiful runs and then disappears. And it has happened again, like in both the innings, right?
But would they want Josh Butler to change his game? Because if we had looked at what happened to Johnny Bairstow, Bairstow was a decent test cricketer. He might not be the world-class batsman or anyone if we want him to be, but he was a decent test cricketer. But I think 2017 end somewhere, he started to play a lot of limited overs cricket. He was trusted as England's opener with Alex Hales not having the best of forms. So by the time he started to become England's opener in white ball cricket, the amount of free-flowing drives and the booming cover drives he started to play, it affected him so much in red ball cricket. Every time his off stump was exposed, he was getting out time and again in red ball cricket, and everyone said, I think this is his white ball game which is now eating his red ball game. So imagine if it happens the other way for Josh Butler. He tries to change his game to score a little bit more runs by staying in the crease for a longer period. He does some alterations to his game in red ball cricket, and ultimately it comes back to bite us white ball cricket. I don't think they would want that.
Yeah, but if you're called once in a generation cricketer like Butler has been, you must adapt, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who have done that already. It's not something we're asking out of nowhere, right? I mean, you take the
But
example of
you see, they said, but is he a once in a generation, or I mean, once in a generation white ball cricketer? Why can't he be once in a generation white ball cricketer? Why he should be the three format cricketer? We speak about it, right? Everyone cannot be a three format cricketer anymore.
yeah.
I mean,
I think it's more important whether he believes it like that also. What does he think about his Test
yeah,
cricket credentials?
yeah.
But I don't think his place is in danger. Even though I know that you like Foakes, the wicket-keeping batsman, and
It's about what England wants.
yeah,
If they want a player who is going to give them more solidity to prevent a batting collapse and to play a long innings, then Foakes is the guy. It's not Josh Butler. So what do they want from their wicket-keeper batsman? That is now very
yeah.
important.
But I don't think his place is in danger. I don't think they'll take
He
him
will
on.
not be dropped. He will not be dropped.
I
At
think
least for the
after
second
this
test, he will
series,
not.
yeah, after the series probably. I think he'll play all the 3 Test matches, and after the
Oh,
test, yeah,
okay.
I think
So
he'll play.
it doesn't matter whatever he does in second test match.
I don't think so. He'll get dropped, regardless of what's happening in the second, because I think he's one of those core guys. Like whatever I see from the England setup, at least in the relationships and the main players, Stokes, Butler, they're all buddy. I don't know.
So then there is a possibility of another wicketkeeper coming in. Maybe if Zach Crawley doesn't perform well, so they could
Could be
drop
Ollie
Crawley.
Pope, right? Ollie Pope struggled in this match, so could be.
I don't think they will drop Ollie Pope. One of the reasons being he is considered as the Ian Bell kind of a player, and they have huge hopes on this guy. And
They don't want
I
to
mean,
destroy his confidence. Yeah.
so what I would say is, if he does even decently in the second test, and Crawley fails to impress, there is a possibility that Ollie Pope might be promoted because they desperately need someone at number 3 if Joe Root is not willing to play as a number 3 batsman. So I wouldn't be surprised because Ian Bell did a very good job coming in as number 3, number 4. So he looks like a carbon copy of Ian Bell. The way he got out also was so Ian Bellish.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
I think if Crawley doesn't perform, there is a possibility for them to desperately try to make a change. Folks might come in.
That would
So
be a
two
bit
wicket-
unfair on Crawley, but yeah, let's see what
It will be.
happens.
Yeah.
But the major failure for England was the two fast bowler theory, right? Which at least in the first innings,
To express pacemen.
express spacemen, Jofra Archer and Mark Wood. I mean, we have seen this in history also. Whenever they tried to express spacemen, other than the West Indies side, which had like 4 express spacemen, but not actually 3. Garner was more fast mediums, but it has never really worked, right? You remember the 2008 Perth Test match where they tried Brett Lee and Sean Tate, and they were all guns blazing. We are going to blow you out, and nothing happened. We won the match, and I also remember the Shoaib Akhtar, Mohammad Sami playing together.
That was a terrible strategy.
I mean, the runs just went faster. So I mean, yeah.
I could give you another classical example. Probably people might not remember this. Varun Aaron, Umesh Yadav.
Okay, if you can call them express, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, deliveries which goes to the stumps are deliveries, not somewhere. Not. I mean, bowling 150 kilometers to the fourth slip is not really fast bowling. So, yeah. Umesh Yadav actually has improved a lot. But yeah.
He has improved, yeah. But,
yeah. Anyway, but that really that bombed, right? Because and that actually broke their strategy in a way. They thought that these two people will blow the West Indies batting lineup, and that really didn't happen. Especially the first innings, they got spanked, and Archer really came back in the second innings, and then he showed his class. But the first innings, it didn't really pan out the way they thought, right?
They could one way say West Indies bowled when the conditions were overcast, and when our quick bowlers started to bowl, the sun started to beat down and the pitch started to ease out. Accepted, but
that's the whole point of having express pace, right?
Exactly. That's the reason you wanted to express pacemen, but it was so delusional to see what was happening down there because Anderson and Stokes were the one who were picking wickets.
Yeah.
In the first innings. So and one more thing was both Wood and Archer when they were bowling, they were like gun barrel straight. Nothing was happening, not on the air, not on the wicket. And I was surprised. And Wood was, his seam was so upright. And we have seen Mohammad Shami, whenever his seam was upright, the ball jumps back and goes out. For Wood, it was going straight.
Yeah.
And West Indies had no problem playing either of them. It doesn't matter. Whichever batsman of West Indies team came out, none of them
Struggled.
felt like, okay, I'm facing this 95 miles per hour bowler. None of them, were deceived by anything they did. So, I mean, that's a questionable call now. But when they select, we said it, right? We said Broad is going to lose out. We said Vokes is going to lose out. And they are going to go for this attack.
We were debating whether Vokes or Wood will come. But the edge was always with Wood. And they couldn't resist that. England always wanted, I think for so many years, England had these medium, fast and swing bowlers, right? So they couldn't resist having two express pace bowlers and just to feel good about themselves. But that really backfired in a way. And
you said it's a slow wicket for starters.
Yeah, it remained a slow wicket, and it really didn't. It was not. I mean, the wicket had no demons, right? I mean, both the captains agreed on that. I mean, it was not a wicket which was unplayable, any of that. More of good bowling or poor batting. So it's a combination of both. And so that the two fast bowler theory really didn't work. And what are your thoughts on Dom Bess, his performance? I don't think you judge him also, right? In a way.
I don't think we can expect anything else from him. What he could have done. He scored 30 valuable runs. If not, this English team would have folded with 160, 170 on the board. So he gave them that extra bit of runs for them to stay in the game till the fifth day, I would say. So, I mean...
He has a good attitude, right? While bowling also, I can see a bit of grab.
He bowled well. He was bowling an attacking line. He was not that middle stump, leg stump bowler.
Right.
He was flighting the ball, and he was more of outside the off stump kind of a bowler. That's a very attacking line, right? Yeah. We don't see a lot of off spinners in modern era do that.
And he also has the attitude of a bowler. He could see that he wanted to take the wickets, and he's in for the competition. Right? It's very competitive.
The only question now people would start to ask is, if Moeen Ali was there, how different it would have been. Moeen could have scored another extra 20 runs. So what do you want from the spinner will be the question now, because England have created this problem on their own. They wanted long batting lineup. They felt a bowler who can bat a lot is always important. That worked. That theory worked very well for them in white ball cricket. But in red ball cricket, it went the other way.
You need specialists in test cricket.
Exactly. Now, just because Dom Bess did not take a 5-wicket haul, and he could not rattle the West Indies lineup in the second innings in particular, would there be questions? I'm sure after a couple of games, they will start to ask, Dom Bess is not doing a lot. So why don't you think about a spinner like Moeen Ali, who can score 50 or 60 or whatever, wherein this guy is not able to contribute that much with the bat. And I think that will be the demise of English cricket if they go down that way again. I don't think that's right. If you go to Australia, if you come to India, if you come with Moeen Ali, I'm sure you are going to get spanked.
Knowing our batsman playing with spin, we really don't know. But
Ajinkya Rahane might give his wicket away, but not everyone.
So this video is partly becoming the Rahane rant. Anyway, we should do that separately. But Dom Bess we spoke about. And then, so somewhere in the corner of London, Stuart Broad must be smiling. So he'll be like, okay. After that interview he gave, and he was hoping that, okay, what if these guys take 5 wickets each, and then he'll feel like a fool. But so Broad.
I would love to see England go to Manchester, look at the wicket. It's a pacey wicket, and then they look at Broad's face and say, I can't do anything now. I have to select you. And they select him, and then they lose the game. I would love to see that. 2 bad selections. I would love to see that.
The colonial anger is still there within Aditya. For his anger or his hatred for England is shown right now. But anyway, forget about the losing side. Just a note on Anderson. Anderson looked pretty decent, pretty good.
He did what he always does.
Yeah, 3 wickets in the first innings.
Effective. Probably they expected a 7 from Anderson, and that didn't happen. That is the only way they could have won the game. So
But now again, he has to play a test match on Thursday. So fitness is one concern. We have to see whether he'll be able to do that again. But I mean, yeah, he might still pull through. Talking about the winning side, so we spoke about how fragile the West Indies batting lineup is, the openers and all that, but they did a pretty decent job.
I told you, Brathwaite.
Yeah,
I told you, Brathwaite. All he needs to do is see out the first session, play till the second session half, score some decent runs on the board, and that will help them score somewhere 250 to 300. He exactly did that.
Right.
He exactly did that. I didn't expect him to do it. Honestly speaking, I thought he will get a booming in-swinger from Anderson and he will get out. But one way or the other, Anderson didn't produce that, and Brathwaite played really well.
Yeah,
he took his time, and the way he handled.
Yeah, probably the most difficult role in the side, right? As an opener with this bowling attack, and he did pretty well. And also Campbell.
I think Campbell also did well.
Did a decent support job. That's enough. I mean, to be honest, in today's times and the way the openers are batting all across the world,
good.
I think pretty good. He did a job, we can say. And Shama Brooks, we spoke about him and his test match playing capability. He did pretty well in the first innings, right? He looked fluent.
Yeah.
And
a hot and cold test match for him.
Yeah, he stood there for quite a while. He played a very sedate innings, and but he still showed some class, and that's what we can hope for right now, right? Like they really don't have star players, but all of them are doing a job, so you can see that.
Yeah, I would say he had a decent game. I think probably one area he might need to improve is when he's put under pressure. The second innings, for example, it was a nothing delivery. It was just straight, and he played all over it. I don't know what he did. That was not a delivery where you should get out. So probably it's a learning curve. I think he will learn. But yeah, for his contribution in the first innings, it wasn't a bad test match for him.
Yeah, it showed glimpses of what we were talking about, like as a quality as a test batsman. Still did a job. Shai Hope really didn't. We were predicting that he is going to be the mainstay, but pretty bad game.
He had a bad game. Right. Very bad.
He kind of started looking fluent in the second innings and then got out again.
He was playing far too many shots. That was not his game. At least at the start of his innings, he doesn't do that. And the way he got out to Dom Bess, it was such an aggressive shot. I don't know why he even went for that. I mean, they were rebuilding the innings at that time. And I felt it was such an irresponsible shot from a player of his class, and he knows he's the backbone of the West Indies team. So it was a horrible test match for him, considering the lofty standards he has set for himself. I would say it was a bad test match. But on the brighter side, there are a couple of good innings that we can expect from Shai Hope. That still is not delivered. So he might turn up for the second game or the third one.
I mean, ever since that twin centuries in Headingley, it has just gone south for him in terms of batting.
27 is his average. So
shocking average. Yeah, shocking average.
I mean, he is more of a test batsman, but if we look at his one-day record, it's more superior. So that's kind of a little strange.
But knowing Holder and this West Indies team, I think they'll back him. And like you said, he might come good in this series. Like he showed glimpses of it. He played some beautiful cover drives in the second innings. That reminded me of the 2017 innings. And so let's hope that hope scores. And one more batsman we were talking about is Roston Chase, who did a fantastic job in this match. Played a very crucial innings. And he has a game to stay, and he really did a job for West Indies. Along with Brooks and Roston Chase, they kind of did the job what was expected.
And one particular aspect which many might miss out, he broke the England opening partnership in the second innings. They never looked like they were getting out. So probably he doesn't get that credit, but he should. If he did not break that partnership, if it has gone past 100, then it could have been a very different game for them. So he did his job.
He's doing his job, man. One of those unassuming cricketers. And coming to the main guy who nobody expected is Blackwood, we already spoke about. And then he again, typically in the first innings, he got out to a terrible shot, and they're like, and Michael Holding, I still remember on commentary, he was like, he has really improved his technique. He's worked on his temperament. And next ball he got out. Right?
Say that you get out.
Next
Yeah.
ball, and here we go again. It's like Michael Holding is like Michael Holding just went mad, and it's like okay.
Yeah, for
that,
all the improvements he did
just,
on domestic
just
cricket.
at that moment he said it's called commentator's curse, right? He just said that. He's like, okay, he has really worked on his technique and all that, and then he said, and he got out. I actually laughed out loudly, like, here we go again. Okay,
that too with his bass voice, you know.
Here we go again. Yeah. He did that. I was like, then I thought, okay, yeah, this is what Blackwood, whatever we expected.
Yes.
And my God, second innings, and then although he gave a few chances, I mean, if taken that would have changed the match. Kind of a chance innings, but again, he showed, as you said, right, that certain shades of something which we haven't seen, which is temperament and choice of shots, staying till the end and all that. He really owned the test match with that second innings knock, right?
Yeah. They were practically 27 for 4 because John Campbell got hurt and they were not sure whether he's going to come out and bat. It was like that was a only moment, if you have observed, England were on top of West Indies. The rest of the 4.5 days, they were chasing the game. So suddenly, a fantastic spell, as you said, from Jofra Archer. They were all of a sudden back in the game, and West Indies looked like they were staring at defeat. So whatever Blackwood did, it is like probably he saved not just the game, he saved the series. That is how big his contribution was. As I said, if West Indies had lost this game, and after dominating all 4 days, I don't think they would have had the heart to come back and,
correct,
take the defeat and then fight back. So he deserves a lot of credit, and I think Holder did give him credit in the post-match presentation and whenever he spoke about him. So it was fantastic.
This is considering the guy would not have played if Hetmeyer was there, if Barrow was there. It was literally like third choice. So he
grabbed his opportunity.
Saved his career also in a way. You can see that.
You could say that.
Yeah. Yes. And let's see again, second match he'll come out and hit it straight to mid-off again. So here we go again.
That could seriously happen.
I mean, Michael Holding has already less hair and he's going to tear it off, whatever that's. And with Blackwood, you don't know, it's all hot and cold. But my underrated man of the match is Shane Dowrich. Played so well. That first innings, 50 was aggressive. He came out and went blazing and all proper shot. He was not like hitting out and all that.
Yeah.
And you remember we had mentioned this in the preview also, that Dowrich has really worked on his batting and he scored a ton of runs in the West Indies counties, and he has come back. And that innings actually, it was one of the moments of the match, I would say, because that changed the momentum, right? It was like, okay, after Blackwood and England would have thought, let's just wrap up the tail, right? Considering what Dowrich did in the previous series, which hardly scored any runs. He couldn't put bat to ball. And
he scored 24 in all the 6 innings put together in the last time they took England.
Yeah. That first innings 50 was fantastic. The most, I think, most important innings, which you might lose context about, but he played so well. And he stopped that rot, right, from going down. Because usually West Indies just get folded out, and you have to remember that Holder didn't score much the first innings, and without that, they did, and without Shai Hope's contribution, they still scored a lot of runs. So they have some steel there, they have some resilience there.
They really have, and I think it's a good resurgence for West Indies cricket. They need this. They don't need a couple of players always playing for them and then going on to win games and then lose a heap of games after that just because their main players didn't turn up. So he did prove that he was a little man with a big heart. He really did that, and he was safe as a house behind the wickets. Fantastic he was. So I think they are in a very good position with him coming after Jason Holder, or just before him, depending upon the situation. They have a tough nut, I think.
Because once, if Holder comes to form, that's a pretty strong lower order. So and pretty resilient lower order also.
I think we should give a lot of credit to Indian team for going to West Indies shows and winning them 2-0. against the space attack on tracks that really offered
Yeah,
something.
I was thinking about this.
We,
Now this West
we
Indies,
never say that out loud.
yeah, this West Indies series victory now looks more important and more difficult than we thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's pretty much the same bowling attack in their own conditions, and we did pretty well.
Yeah.
I think we need to revisit. I need to watch the highlights again. We played. And
yeah, even I felt the same.
The guy you are ranting about, he scored a century. So okay, so
yeah, credit where it is due. I mean, he had a fantastic series. There is no doubt.
We all want him to do
He
good.
doesn't replicate that time and again. Yeah, that's the story for a different day. Yeah.
Yeah, and coming to the fast bowling for West Indies, Roach had a very quiet game, and probably they expected a lot more. I mean, all of us expected a lot more from Roach, but
he didn't. He didn't bowl at least like the Roach we wanted. He was so bowling within himself. It's just 130.
Yeah, it's not the
Maybe after a long time he's coming back, and maybe he felt that his body conditions, he knows it better than anyone. He didn't want to take it too far, so he might get injured if he does that. So
yeah, and he has said that. He has said that he's consciously trying to bowl a lot slower and focus more on length and all that. But yeah, we don't know. Probably is the aggression what makes him great, and I don't know. So, but again, one thing is at least he didn't give too many runs. He was pretty economical, and he was not.
Yeah.
He was not leaking runs from one end, because that's how a team bowling unit has to work, right? And but one guy who didn't really impress as such. I mean, second innings he picked up, but first innings he really got spanked was Alzarri Joseph, right? Young guy. Yeah. You can pardon him for that. He's pretty new in these conditions also, but I thought he will be a lot more effective against this English batting lineup. But
I think that is one particular aspect where both of us got it totally wrong. The pacemen who were supposed to be so fearful. I think Wood, Archer, Joseph, all three flattered to deceive. Shannon Gabriel is different. He's not just about raw pace.
We'll come to
him. But yeah, these three people, as we spoke about, I would say for Joseph, it's okay because he's very young for starters. And he was never considered to be the premier fast bowler for them, right? They know Holder can do the job. They know Kemar Roach can do it, and then Gabriel. Probably he is like again the out of syllabus kind of a bowler. If everyone is gonna be taken apart, right now he's gonna come in and bowl those 4-5 overs of 90 plus if he could, and then see if he can do anything. So I don't think his below average game affected West Indies in this particular match. But moving forward, they will look into what he has done, because next game, if Holder doesn't pick a heap of big wickets, then you need this extra bowler to come in and do the job, right? He cannot bowl the same way on all three games and then say he's a young bowler. That cannot be an excuse.
Yeah, and I think he on the second innings he bowled a bit better. He showed some character there, even though he had a pretty horrible first innings. You could see a lot more rhythm in the second innings, so that could also be
like Shami.
Yes, but you can't predict Shami.
Maybe the second innings bowler he is. We haven't seen much of him.
Actually, too early to say anything on Joseph. I think he'll still play. And I think the star bowler for both the sides, I think it should be Shannon Gabriel. This is one fast bowler I really admire. I mean, even when he bowled against India, he was troubling everyone. I mean, he has this terrible bouncer, right? Which just comes just below your neck, and he bowls what we call as the heavy ball, right? Every ball feels like it's coming at 200 kilometers and it's going to smash your skull. And he had this no ball issues here and there, and but one guy who was super aggressive and is always on the money and always looking to take wickets, right? So again, one other bowler who's not really discussed as much as Rabada or as much as Archer or any of those. Gabriel has been doing pretty well for quite a while. So absolutely. And he was superb in this inning, right? In this match.
Yeah, fantastic. And the best aspect I could see in him was whenever he took a wicket, or I mean the ball thundered onto the stumps, there was never a celebration wherein he provoked a batsman. For such a huge guy, bowling at a rapid pace, is very calm. He's very composed. It's lovely to see that kind of an aggression wherein you need not say anything, right? I don't think the great West Indian pace bowlers of the 80s or 70s, they never spoke so much. They say this time and again. Maybe
Yeah.
a star is the maximum they do. Why do you want to go and speak something when you can make the ball do all the talk, right?
In fact,
Uh,
a lot of these batsmen have said about this, right? They said when the bowler doesn't talk, and that's even more scary. Because and there
yeah,
is this story of Curtly Ambrose, right, who just stares at you. He never says a
Mhm.
word. And he said, "What should I do now? Why are you just looking at me?"
yeah,
And Curtly
yeah,
Ambrose had
absolutely.
this line called "Curtly talk to no man." He didn't give interviews. He didn't give any.
Yeah,
He's talking more now than ever. But Ambrose was one guy who never used to speak. He'll just stare at you, right? 6'7", 6'8", and
that's
smile.
that's like the fear of unknown. So you haven't seen his
Are you
interviews. You
angry? Are you happy? Are you
Yeah,
what? Like what?
absolutely. That's terrifying. That's
Yeah.
terrifying. Yeah.
Gabriel
So
is one guy I always feel like he's about to pick up a wicket. You know, that's a great quality for a fast bowler. That
mhm,
you always think that you are in the game. Something is going to happen when he is bowling.
mhm,
So uh,
yeah,
I think a fast bowler who should be celebrated a lot more than what we do right now.
yeah.
Uh,
He should be spoken in the ranks of Rabada, Bumrah, Archer, or whomsoever they say as the top bowlers of this
Premier fast
generation.
bowlers. Yes.
Yeah, premier fast bowlers. He should be there. I think
Yeah.
he deserves that.
Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much we discussed most of the players now, and
Yeah.
just coming back to Holder and the way he has led the side, and I mean, actually credit should go to both these teams, for both England and West Indies, for agreeing to play this match in a bio bubble and all sorts of tests, this and that, and how much UK has suffered. So it's very brave of them, both the home and away
Absolutely.
cricketers, to travel. There is this statistics that uh, talks about uh, the COVID actually is killing a lot more people of the mixed race and a lot more people of black and other things. So despite all those statistics against them,
Oh, okay.
the West Indies
Mhm.
cricketers agreeing to come and play this match, and I mean play in such a fantastic match, uh, really is a credit to Test cricket. And and I was so happy that cricket restarted with Test cricket. Right, we always talk about we have to save Test cricket now. Kind of Test cricket has saved cricket right now with this match, and
Yeah.
you know what it means. This game cannot be replaced, right? Like you cannot be a T20 or one day match would have
No.
made this whole comeback to cricket very trivial. And
Mhm.
the players
Mhm.
battling for 5 days, session after session. It is just reflecting life right now. You take
Yep.
everything on a day basis, right? On
Mhm.
on every day, you assess how you went, and
Yeah.
this test match has resonated with me that way, and it really felt like life was just being imitated on the field. Uh,
I've never seen such kind of a buzz for any cricketing match wherein India didn't play. I've never seen this buzz among Indian fans. So
Absolutely.
that speaks volume about how much, uh, uh, not just Indian fans across the globe, how much cricket fans love cricket. It's not just the team they support. Uh, you know, uh, I mean, now whenever we look at the last 10, 15 years, cricket is played almost all 365 days.
Hmm.
So everyone had their own team to support at different junctures, and they never cared about any other series that is happening. Probably this England West Indies series would not have got even half the viewership uh,
On
it
normal
could have.
circumstances, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
that's
actually
fantastic.
it's actually bringing back this habit of the 90s where we used to watch every series
Mhm.
because
Yep.
cricket
Yep.
didn't happen too often. So all these series were pretty important. You used to watch West Indies, South Africa. You will watch West Indies, Australia. Any of you will sit up at night and watch these
Yes.
West Indies matches, right? Because cricket was
Yes.
not so. It was not played every day of the year, and it meant something.
Exactly.
So, and
Exactly.
also, I mean, what a response for a game which had zero people on the stadium. Nobody was there, and even that winning moment was so beautiful, right? Just knock
Yeah.
a, a single, and then there is nobody there cheering or shouting, and players just
but already I have started to get some noise from English media or English fans that Brahmi Army was not there. We didn't have enough support. And like, okay,
that's just banter, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, fine. Having the home crowd support is always helpful. I would give the same reason if India is going to lose a game and then we say, it was played an empty stadium. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we didn't have this Swami Army or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, or whatever. So
yeah, I think that they just want to sell papers. They'll say all sorts of things. But overall, I mean, the whole context, if you remember, Sky had a lot of coverage about the racism part, right? Where they had Michael Holding speaking, and the English female cricketer also, she spoke. Right? I think her name is Ebony. Yeah, she also spoke about racism in cricket and regardless of gender. So, and what has happened with the George Floyd situation, racism across the world, and protest. It gave so much more meaning to this match. And
I think this is the first match, right? After all that incident has happened.
Yeah, and watching Michael Holding crying, and he's like a
painful.
Yeah, he's like a hero, and this is like the best way you can make him happy, right? With winning the match, and so I felt so good about the whole game. It's not really about who won, who lost, and all that. At the end, I think cricket won, so it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, I would say it's like a 10 out of 10 game. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It really was.
So again, we are looking forward to the next test match, the third test match, second test match. It's going to happen on Thursday. One good thing about this COVID thing is the match is happening in quick succession. We don't have to wait too much. The next match is coming this week. So we are looking forward to the next match. We'll have a preview about this, about the second test again, about the squads, the big question of whether Stuart Broad is going to come and play, and also what is going to be the lineup, and who's coming in, who's going out. So we'll discuss all that in the next video. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys watched the match, enjoyed the cricketers come back, and we're also happy. And Aditya, again, thank you for joining and discussing the game. All of us really enjoyed. It's a fantastic match. And hope to see you again for the second preview on the second test match. And, we'll catch up then. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.